Rick's boots scraped against the cracked asphalt of Iron Hollow streets, each step a dull echo in the dusk. The city hummed a low mechanical drone of neon signs flickering like dying stars, their pink and blue glow smearing the horizon. He pulled his hoodie tighter, the chill biting his knuckles, his breath fogging in the air. Just keep moving, he thought, though where to, he didn't know. The world felt like a cage, its bars woven from routine and regret. A cigarette butt smoldered at his feet, its ember a fleeting pulse in the gray. Then a howl, raw, jagged, primal, tore through the evening. Rick froze, heart thudding. It wasn't just a sound. It was a call, ancient and urgent, rising from the city's underbelly. His eyes darted to the alley ahead, where shadows seemed to breathe. Rick's boots scraped against the cracked asphalt of Iron Hollow's streets, each step a dull echo in the dusk. The city hummed a low mechanical drone of neon signs flickering like dying stars, their pink and blue glow smearing the horizon. He pulled his hoodie tighter, the chill biting his knuckles, his breath fogging in the air. Just keep moving, he thought, though where to, he didn't know. The world felt like a cage, its bars woven from routine and regret. A cigarette butt smoldered at his feet, its ember a fleeting pulse in the gray. Then a howl, raw, jagged, primal, tore through the evening. Rick froze, heart thudding. It wasn't just a sound. It was a call, ancient and urgent, rising from the city's underbelly. His eyes darted to the alley ahead, where shadows seemed to breathe. Rick's thoughts churned like the smog over Iron Hollow, thick and directionless. What's the point, he wondered, kicking a bottle across the pavement? It shattered against a curb, the sound sharp like his own brittle edges. At 22, he was jobless, tethered to his mother's basement, a ghost in his own life. Once he'd dreamed of escape, open roads, a life beyond the city's rust and ruin. Now he drifted numb, his defiance buried under layers of apathy. The howl from the alley lingered in his mind, a splinter he couldn't ignore. Why does it feel like it's calling me? His hands shook slightly, not from cold, but from something deeper, fear maybe, or the faint stir of something he thought he'd lost. He glanced back at the alley, its shadows pulling him closer. Rick stepped closer, the alley's mouth swallowing the last of the streetlight's glow. There, Fang's silhouette took shape motionless, save for the glint of his eyes, twin embers burning with a challenge. The German shepherd didn't growl, didn't flinch, just stared, his gaze a weight Rick felt in his chest. He's not scared, Rick thought, but he's not trusting either. A distant car engine rumbled, its low growl vibrating through the pavement, hinting at something approaching, someone watching, maybe beyond the alley's edge. Rick's pulse quickened, his instincts prickling. He wanted to turn away to keep drifting, but Fang's stare held him. It was a spark, a promise of something raw and alive, whispering that this moment could change everything. Rick's mind slipped back to 18, when Iron Hollow hadn't yet ground him down. He'd stood on the high school football field, graduation cap in hand, the sunset painting the sky like a promise. He'd planned to leave college a new city, a life where his name meant something. But tuition drained his savings, and professors' lectures felt like static. He dropped out, slinking back to Sharon's house, where dead-end jobs, stocking shelves, cleaning bars, chipped away at his fire. Now at 22, he avoided her eyes, her soft questions about his day cutting deeper than any lecture. The city's decay mirrored his own, a rusted dream, a spark snuffed out. I'm still here, he thought, staring at the alley's mouth, but for what Fang's howl echoed in his memory, a faint call to something he couldn't name. Rick's days bled together in a haze of routine. Mornings were spent scrolling job boards on a cracked phone screen, the glow casting shadows on his basement walls, plastered with faded band posters. He'd smoke on Sharon's porch, the cigarette's bitter tang, a fleeting distraction from the weight in his chest. Get up, try again, Sharon would say, her voice gentle but heavy with worry. He'd nod, dodge her gaze, and retreat to his room, a tomb of unwashed clothes and half-read books. The city's drones seeped through the walls, its sirens and clatter a mocking rhythm to his stagnation. I'm not living, he thought, flicking ash into the dusk. That howl from the alley clung to him, a jagged note disrupting the numbness, whispering of something wild beyond his cage. Fang's past was etched in his body, a map of battles fought and trust broken. Once he'd been a K-9 legend in Iron Hollow's police force, his nose sharp enough to sniff out stashes in crumbling warehouses, his bark a warning that froze dealers in their tracks. He'd charged into chaos without hesitation, his handler Cole's voice a tether. Find it, Fang, until a drug bust went wrong. A bullet grazed his flank, leaving a jagged scar beneath his matted fur, and Cole's absence after the hospital cage stung deeper than the wound. Abandoned Fang wandered the city's edges, ribs pressing against skin, his eyes glinting with betrayal. He flinched at loud voices, now his growl a reflex, but his heart still burned with a warrior's fire, yearning for a purpose he could trust. Rick stood at the alley's edge, Fang's ember-like eyes meeting his own. Both had been betrayed, Rick, by dreams of a life beyond Iron Hollow. Fang, by the handler who'd left him to rot. Rick saw the dog's scar, a pale crescent under dirt, and felt his own wounds less visible, but just as raw. We're both stuck. He thought his chest tight with recognition. Fang's stillness wasn't just fear, it was a mirror of Rick's own guarded heart, both of them surviving on instinct, wary of trust. A breeze carried the city's sour breath, rustling weeds between them. Rick crouched not too close, and Fang's ears twitched a silent acknowledgement. In that shared glance, something stirred, a fragile thread of understanding tying their emptiness together, hinting at a path toward healing. The sky above Iron Hollow split open, rain hammering the pavement like 1,000 fists. Rick ducked into the alley, seeking shelter, but froze as lightning flashed, illuminating Fang's trembling form against the dumpster. The German shepherd's fur clung to his frame, soaked and matted, his bullet scar glistening like a raw wound. Water pooled around him, tinged red from an oozing gash on his flank. Rick's heart thudded, the storm's roar amplifying the dog's silent plea. He's dying out here, he thought, the words heavy with a truth he couldn't shake. The air crackled with electricity, the city's pulse wild and unforgiving, mirroring the desperation in Fang's half-closed eyes. Rick's breath caught something about that broken creature, felt like looking into his own fractured soul. Rick's boots sloshed in the puddles, his mind screaming to walk away. He's not my problem, he told himself, picturing Fang's teeth sharp and unpredictable. He'd failed at everything, college jobs, even keeping himself together. Why take on a half-dead dog? Rain stung his face as he stood rooted, the city's growl drowning his thoughts. But Fang's low whimper cut through, faint, almost lost in the storm. He's got no one. Rick realized the thought a blade through his apathy. His hands clenched, torn between fear and a flicker of something older, compassion maybe, or the ghost of who he'd wanted to be. That whimper echoed in his chest, stirring a purpose he thought had drowned long ago in Iron Hollow's decay. Rain lashed Rick's face as he knelt, his hoodie soaked through the alley's chill seeping into his bones. Fang's eyes tracked him, wary, a low growl rumbling in his throat. Easy boy, Rick murmured, voice barely audible over the storm's roar. He shrugged off his jacket, draping it over Fang's trembling frame, the fabric heavy with water, but warm from his body. The dog's stiffened teeth bared but didn't snap. Rick's hands shook as he looped a frayed rope from his pocket around Fang's neck, gentle but firm. Come on, you're not dying here. Fang resisted, paws scraping pavement, but Rick pulled steadily, heart-pounding as they stumbled toward Sharon's garage. It was messy, the rope slipping, Fang's growls spiking, but Rick didn't let go. Something irreversible had begun. In the dim glow of Sharon's garage, Rick set a bowl of water near Fang, who crouched in the corner, eyes like embers. The German shepherd's fur dripped, leaving dark stains on the concrete, his scar a stark line under the flickering bulb. Rick tossed a blanket over a crate, giving Fang space, his own breath uneven. Can I even do this? He wondered, doubt clawing at the spark in his chest. Fang lapped at the water, cautious, his gaze never leaving Rick. That small act, drinking, felt like a whispered agreement. Sharon's shadow passed the door, her silence heavy with questions. Rick met Fang's eyes, a quiet promise forming in the musty air. We're in this together now. The city's hum faded, leaving only their shared fragile trust. The garage smelled of motor oil and damp concrete, its shadows pooling around Fang's hunched form in the corner. The German shepherd's eyes glinted, tracking Rick's every move as he set down a bowl of kibble, the clatter echoing in the silence. Fang's growl was low, a warning carved from betrayal, his scarred flank twitching. "I'm not gonna hurt you," Rick muttered, his voice soft, almost lost in the city's distant sirens. He backed away, hands raised, giving Fang the space he demanded. Rick's chest tightened. Fang's wariness mirrored his own, a wall built from too many letdowns. He sat on a crate, the cold biting through his jeans, watching Fang's rigid stillness. Neither moved closer, their silence a shared language of caution, the garage a fragile boundary between their guarded worlds. Rick's fingers trembled as he dabbed antiseptic on Fang's oozing wound. The dog's flinch a sharp echo of his own recoil from life's sting. The garage's dim bulb cast their shadows, long and jagged like ghosts of their former selves. Fang's eyes softened just a flicker as Rick whispered, "You're okay." A kibble bag tipped, spilling across the floor, and both froze, staring at the scattered pieces. Rick nudged a few closer. Fang sniffed, then ate, his jaw tense but deliberate. "We're both a mess," Rick thought, his aimlessness as raw as Fang's betrayal. The city's hum pulsed outside, but in that shared stillness their pain felt entwined, a silent understanding born in the flicker of the bulb where neither had to hide their wounds. A car backfired outside the garage, sharp as a gunshot, and Fang's bark ripped through the quiet, his body low, ears pinned. Rick froze the sound, yanking him back to a summer night, at 18 standing on Iron Hollow's edge, guitar in hand, dreaming of stages far from the city's rust. That hope had crumbled like the pavement under his feet now. Fang's flinch at the slammed garage door stirred another memory, his handler's boots retreating, leaving him caged after the bullet's bite. Rick's gaze met Fang's, both raw, with echoes of betrayal. "You get it, don't you?" Rick thought, his voice caught in his throat. Fang's barking stopped. He paused, watching Rick, a tentative bridge forming in their shared scars, a silent nod to pain they didn't need to speak. In an overgrown park, Rick tossed a tennis ball, its arc cutting through Iron Hollow's gray haze. Fang's eyes followed, wary, his scarred flank twitching as he crouched. Then he lunged, snatching the ball tail, flicking a faint wag like a spark in ash. Rick laughed, the sound foreign, cracking the city's oppressive drone. They played in the tangled grass, the world softening for a moment, the air sharp with pine and damp earth. Rick knelt, offering a piece of jerky from his hand. Fang hesitated, then took it, his muzzle brushing Rick's fingers. "You're warming up?" Rick thought, his chest light with a joy he hadn't felt in years. The park's wild pulse thrummed around them, a fleeting haven where Fang's guarded heart began to ease, mirroring Rick's own. The garage was a cocoon of quiet, the city's hum muted by its walls. Rick sat on the concrete, knees pulled up, watching Fang's silhouette in the dim light. The German shepherd's breathing had slowed, his scarred flank rising and falling like a tide. Then, without warning, Fang limped forward, his eyes steady, no longer glinting with suspicion. He lowered his head, resting it on Rick's knee, the weight warm and solid. Rick's throat tightened, tears pricking as he reached out, fingers grazing Fang's fur, soft, despite the scars. "You're letting me in." He thought, the realization a flood breaking through his numbness. Fang's tail gave a single thump, a surrender to trust. Rick's hand lingered, their bond sealed in that fragile touch, a promise that neither would face Iron Hollow's shadows alone. In the overgrown park, Fang's ears pricked, his body tensing as he stared into the dusk. A low growl rumbled in his throat, his gaze fixed on shadows shifting beyond the tangled trees. Rick's pulse quickened, the air heavy with Iron Hollow's sour breath oil rust, and something sharper like danger's edge. "What do you see, boy?" he thought, following Fang's stare to a flicker of movement, a snapped twig, a cigarette butt glowing faintly in the dirt. The city's wild pulse felt menacing now, its hidden corners alive with threat. Fang's hackles rose, his instincts screaming what Rick couldn't yet grasp. The park, once a haven, tightened around them, its shadows whispering of a past creeping closer, ready to claw back what they'd built. A stranger's silhouette loomed at the park's edge, his cigarette flaring like a predator's eye. Fang's growl deepened, a primal snarl, his body low and taut, ready to spring. Rick's heart slammed against his ribs, Sharon's vague warnings. "Stay out of trouble," Rick echoing in his mind. The stranger's stare locked on Fang, recognition flashing, and Rick's gut twisted. He knows him. Fang's aggression surged, a memory of flashing lights and gunfire, his last bust, the bullet's sting, Cole's betrayal flooding back. Rick's panic spiked his mind, racing to Sharon's nervous glances, her unspoken past. What aren't you telling me? He thought, fear and anger colliding. Fang's bared teeth mirrored Rick's clenched fists, their shared dread, a tether in the darkening park binding them against a threat that felt like it had always been waiting. The garage door rattled as Cole, Fang's former handler, stepped inside, his boots heavy on the concrete. "I need the dog," he said, voice, flat eyes, cold as Iron Hollow's steel. Fang's snarl was instant, teeth bared the scar on his flank, a stark reminder of Cole's abandonment. Rick stood, fists tight, blocking Fang's path. "He's not yours anymore." Cole's gaze sharpened, hinting at the gang's vendetta, a botched bust Fang had led dismantling their operation, with Sharon's old ties to their leader woven into the fallout. "You don't know what you're in," Cole warned, stepping closer. Fang lunged, a warning snap, and Rick's shout held him back. The air crackled, a standoff of betrayal and loyalty, the city's pulse pounding as past and present collided in the garage's dim light. Cole's boots faded into the night, leaving the garage heavy with silence. Rick sank to the floor, his back against the crate, Fang's warmth pressing against his side. The German shepherd's breathing was steady now, but his eyes still tracked the door, wary. "He's not taking you." Rick thought, his hand resting on Fang's fur, the touch grounding them both. Sharon stood in the doorway, her face pale, her fingers twisting a dishcloth, a nervous tick betraying secrets she hadn't shared. The city's hum pulsed outside, but in that moment, Rick and Fang's bond held firm, a silent vow to face whatever came next. "We've got each other." Rick thought, the weight of Cole's threat lingering like smoke, but their trust a quiet anchor in the storm's wake. The park's wild edges felt tighter now, its overgrown paths marked by fresh graffiti, jagged tags in red like blood on Iron Hollow's veins. Fang's hackles rose, his nose twitching at the scent of cigarette smoke lingering in the air. Rick's boots crunched on broken twigs, each snap amplifying his unease. "They're watching us," he thought, catching a glint of movement, a shadow ducking behind a rusted fence. Fang's low growl vibrated through the dusk. His body coiled, sensing the gang's approach before Rick could see it. The city's pulse quickened, its wild heart turning predatory. A cigarette butt glowed in the dirt, still smoldering, a warning that the threat was closing in, ready to tear apart the fragile haven they'd carved from the urban sprawl. The abandoned lot was a graveyard of rusted cars and shattered glass, Iron Hollow's decay bared under a sallow moon. Rick's breath caught as three figures emerged from the shadows, their leader a man with a scar splitting his brow, fixing his gaze on Fang. "That dog cost me everything." He spat, voice low, venomous, tied to the bust Fang had led years ago. Sharon's past, her old ties to this man, hung unspoken in the air. Fang's snarl was a blade, his body shielding Rick's ears pinned back. Rick's heart pounded, fear coiling like wire in his gut. They want him dead. The gang closed in, boots crunching, their intent clear. Fang was leverage, a symbol of their loss. The lot's air thickened, a life-or-death edge cutting through the night. Rick stepped in front of Fang, his voice steady, despite the tremor in his hands. "You're not touching him," the gang leader sneered, raising a pipe. But Fang lunged, teeth snapping, a blur of fur and fury. A blow caught Fang's shoulder, and he yelped, stumbling, blood seeping into his fur. Rick's rage surged, drowning fear. He tackled the leader, fists clumsy but fierce, shouting Fang's name. The dog rallied, barking, driving the others back, his loyalty afire against the night. The gang retreated, their curses fading into the lot's shadows. Rick knelt, hands on Fang's trembling flank, their eyes meeting mutual sacrifice, forging an unbreakable bond. "We saved each other," Rick thought, the city's pulse softening their defiance, a beacon in Iron Hollow's dark. The garage was a sanctuary of quiet, the city's hum a distant murmur. Rick knelt beside Fang, his hands steady as he cleaned the fresh wound on the German shepherd's shoulder, the blood stark against his fur. Fang's eyes, once sharp with mistrust, were soft now, watching Rick with a stillness that felt like trust. Sharon hovered in the doorway, her face etched with worry, her unspoken past a shadow she didn't voice. "We're okay," Rick thought, his voice caught in the ache of survival. The air smelled of antiseptic and damp concrete, the bulb above flickering like a heartbeat. They'd faced the dark and come through scarred but alive, the garage a fragile haven where fear had no hold, though its echo lingered in their bones. Days bled into weeks, Rick and Fang moving in quiet sync through Iron Hollow's wild edges. They shared meals in the park, Fang's muzzle brushing Rick's hand as he took scraps no leash needed. The air carried the scent of pine and rust, the city's pulse gentler now. Sharon finally spoke, her voice low, confessing her past with the gang's leader, a fleeting, desperate choice from years ago. Rick listened, his anger softening her honesty, a bridge to their own healing. Fang trotted closer, lying at Rick's side, his warmth a steady anchor, their scars Rick's aimlessness. Fang's betrayal faded in these small acts, their bond a silent rhythm of trust woven through shared steps and glances, a slow rebirth under the city's watchful sky. Dawn broke over Iron Hollow, painting the park's overgrown paths in soft gold. Rick walked his steps light, the air crisp with dew and possibility. Fang he called voice, steady, a name now heavy with meaning. The German shepherd's ears flicked, and he trotted to Rick's side, their strides aligning, no leash, no hesitation. Fang's scarred flank caught the light, a testament to battles survived. Rick's hand brushed the dog's head, a gentle touch returned by a nudge of Fang's muzzle. We made it, Rick thought, his chest full, the city's wild heart beating softly around them. A faint shadow of danger lingered. Iron Hollow never slept, but their bond was a quiet rebirth, their steps side by side, a vow that fear would never own them again.